Hello, everyone. This is Mike Cosgrove with Pro Concepts, and I've got some friends and some guests here with me. I've got Ron Brenke and Mark McRobie, both with the ACEC, which stands for the American Council of Engineering Companies. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning, Mike.
How are you guys?
Awesome.
Good.
Yeah, doing great.
It's their first podcast, which is pretty typical when I have guests on that it's their first podcast. So I told them when you get here, it looks super official, and it is, but I'm glad you were able to join us. And one of the things I typically want to share with everyone that's listening in. So PCIA, we focus on working with engineering firms, architectural firms, CPA firms, law firms, technology firms, and real estate firms. So basically, all professional services is what we do. And so on our podcast, we have various guests come in that help support those disciplines and those associations. And so, Ron, I'm going to start with you because I've worked with you the longest at ACEC. And I remember when you started there because I'd worked with Steve Wagner, your predecessor.
Yep.
But how long has it been now?
20 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
20 right on the mark?
Yeah, I started in 2003, September 2003. So
okay, all right,
20 years.
Awesome. And tell me about your background.
So actually, I am an engineer myself.
Sure.
I worked for the Federal Highway Administration out of college for the first 5 years of my career, and then I went to work for my first association, which was a contractors association, Michigan Road Builders Association, which is now MITA. And that kind of got me the association bug, so to speak, learned what they were all about. And then when Steve Wagner retired, as you mentioned, I applied for his job, and I've been there for the last 20 years.
Nice.
So,
nice. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you. I know ACC has changed a ton over those 20 years and in a good way. I think there's, you all are doing things better and more efficiently and really helping the different disciplines that are part of your membership. And we're going to get into what that is. So today's program is coined the 5 reasons why a design professional firm should join ACEC. So Mark McRobie, I'd like to, first of all, what a great last name. I have to think like in sports, as high school or, when you're even younger than that, McRobie must have been a great sports name to have. But tell us about your background, if you would.
Yeah, so I've been with ACEC for a little bit less than Ron. I've been there for about 7 months. Prior to that, I spent about 14 years working for a couple different consulting firms.
Okay.
Actually, the most recent was one of the member firms of ACEC.
Nice.
So business development, marketing background prior to joining on as the deputy director with Ron just back in January of 2023.
Awesome. So Mark, you are kind of like the upcoming when Ron decides to retire in 30 years. You're probably not going to retire for 30 years, right? So yeah. Well, we're glad you're on the team, and I've enjoyed working with you over the last 7 months or so. I feel like it's been longer than that.
Yeah, it does feel like it's been a little bit longer than that, but hasn't quite been that long.
Sure. Yeah. All right. So one of the things I always ask my guests, what's a favorite business book, and it doesn't have to be business, but a favorite book that you would recommend to people listening in on the podcast? What's your favorite one?
Well, I've probably read most of them, The Good to Greats, First Break All the Rules.
Sure.
But, I've really moved more to podcasts.
Oh, okay.
I'm a big Dave Ramsey fan.
Dave Ramsey's, he's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And, I'll listen to a Maxwell leadership podcast. And so I'm embarrassed to say I don't read like I used to,
sure,
but
yeah.
I just get it a different way.
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, I think it's the same thing. Podcasts and that are great ways to get shorter snippets. I feel like our attention spans are so much less than they used to be. Right. And I find if I'm reading, I have to read earlier in the day. Like if I'm laying in bed to read a book, I might get a page in, It takes a long time to finish a book when you're doing it at that speed. So awesome. Well, I love that. And Maxwell's an amazing writer and leader and speaker and everything else. So Mark, how about you?
Similar to Ron, I do a lot of podcasts, but I'd say book-wise, probably the recent favorite would be Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink.
Oh, interesting.
It's one that I've really enjoyed. So I read a mix of business and things like that as well. So that was a good one. I probably read that one about a year ago.
Extreme Ownership.
Yep.
And tell me the gist to that book.
Oh, that's a tough one. I would recommend it to anyone, but really it's about just even interactions with peers or colleagues, clients, whatever it may be. Really just taking ownership of all the things that happen in those interactions, more of more of, taking ownership of things versus placing blame on people if an interaction goes poorly or something like that. So,
boy, what a great thought process that is. And it's something we talk about at the agency all the time is like, hey, we're all going to make mistakes. We're human beings. And the best thing you can do is own it, learn from it, and move on. Now, if you continue to make the same mistake over and over, then we got a problem. But a mistake, I mean, again, we're humans. It's what it's supposed to be. But I find that the folks that own their mistakes tend to do very well in the world, and they learn from them. So that sounds like a fantastic book. I'll have to add it to my list.
Yep.
All right. So we're talking about the 5 reasons why design professional firms should join ACEC. So kick me off with number 1. What's the number 1 that comes to mind?
Well, I'll start because, survey after survey that we do, advocacy comes up as the number 1 reason people gravitate to ACEC. And, advocacy means more than just working with the legislature.
Sure.
It means more than tracking legislation that's either good or bad for the industry. When the firm has a problem and they need help,
Sure.
they want that association that's going to help them get through that problem. And chances are other firms have the same problem,
Sure.
So we work with the DOT,
Right.
had a long-term partnership with them for more than 20 years as well. But we also work with other owner agencies that our members contract with. And so if they have a contract issue, or maybe it's a process issue, maybe they're having trouble getting paid. All these types of things we work with the agencies on to improve the business processes.
Nice.
And I think, advocacy is probably the number 1 thing we do.
Sure.
We're very active in the legislature. We have a PAC, so we contribute, to candidates and try to elect candidates who understand and support business and the engineering profession as a whole. So that's an important part of it too. People don't really like PACs, to give to PACs and things, but they have to understand that, that's access to the legislator. You support them during their campaigns. They remember that.
Sure.
And when you come to talk to them about an issue, it seems like you get a lot more attention
Right.
because you've invested in them. And so, but it's, I always say if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Sure.
And
What a great phrase that is.
yeah, and you wouldn't think engineers would be on the menu, but everybody's on the menu at some
Absolutely.
point. So,
Well, and I think advocacy, it takes money.
it does.
And we'll have, and I know we've had this happen over the years, you and I have talked about it. We'll have firms contact us and say, hey, what are the insurance companies doing in regards to XYZ, whatever it is. And my first thought process is, well, A, you're not involved in ACEC, and you should be, because that's where the money for the association goes towards the advocacy and making, having a bigger voice at the table, kind of a thing. So I always tell firms, and by the way, ACEC, while the name is American Council of Engineering Companies, it really has become an association for the design professional community. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's engineering, environmental, architectural, mechanical, electrical, structural, survey. I mean, it is the whole gamut. And your PACs are for all of those different disciplines.
Absolutely right. And, our membership is very diverse that way.
Sure.
I mean, we have small firms, we have large firms, many types of disciplines. But I think, our focus is on the built environment.
Sure.
That's where some people, we've had people call us and say, hey, we'd like to join. And we're like, what do you do? Oh, we work for the auto industry. And, and sometimes because they're an engineering company, it doesn't mean they work for the built environment, meaning they work on actual man-made infrastructure type projects. So that we are a little bit of a niche, organization that way. And we do focus on that. So
sure. Well, and that's a great clarification, and actually it applies to PCIA as well. We only deal with the built professional engineering, that type of a thing, versus the automotive type space or product type space. So yeah, awesome. So how about number 2, Mark? What would you say number 2 is?
I would say probably education.
Sure.
And that's kind of a twofold thing for ACEC. It's both on like the business side as well as the technical. So there will be trainings for, engineers, continuing education for them. And then also, education really on how to run a business,
Sure.
leadership development, kind of transition planning, strategic planning, things like that. And the education programs are through a mix of things. Conferences, we hold a couple big conferences every year.
In person, I believe.
In person,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Webinars, some trainings we work through with organizations like the National Highway Institute to put on bridge inspection training for both our members, and actually some of our clients attend those trainings as well.
Nice.
And then I think the flagship program is our Emerging Leaders program.
Okay.
And Ron, you can correct me, but I think there's about 25 people in it this year, and it's coming up on the 10th year.
Yeah, we started in 2015. So,
Oh, okay.
yep.
Nice.
And that's it's a Thursday, Friday in September, October, and November, different locations around the state. And it's education on a variety of topics, business development, strategic planning. Trying to think some of the other ones.
Risk management. I know risk management's one because I always do the speaking part of that.
So that's one of the huge benefits to our members is kind of the education, not just for the leadership of their firms, but the up and coming leadership,
Sure.
Even down to the entry level folks that just need education on various topics.
Nice. I think with the new leaders program, one of the best things that comes out of that, in addition to all the topics you just shared, of course, one of the best things is about the networking between those folks. Because I feel like age-wise, these are the folks that one day will be running a firm, right? And so I feel like that new leaders program is fantastic about getting them to understand that if you're a civil engineer and say you don't have surveying in-house, who in that room do you now have a relationship with? Because you're spending 3 months together. It's 3 days per month, right?
2 days per month.
Oh, 2 days per month. But you really get to know people on a different level when you do that in subsequent months back to back. And I know they go out at nighttime and have dinner, and it's just a way to really form that human relationship between them so that going forward, they've got folks that they deal with the rest of their lives, right? So, yeah. Awesome. All right. So education is huge. Anything else on education that comes to mind that you want to bring up under number 2?
No, Mark did a great job of summarizing.
Okay.
Engineers are great at engineering,
Sure.
but they're not always great at running a business, and that's one of the flagships of ACEC is the business of engineering. So all of the things that Mark mentioned is drilling down all throughout your company, how to become profitable, how to make sure you're growing your business. I mean, that's what we can provide. And I don't think there's any other engineering society that does that.
Yeah.
So
no, and I would agree. And actually, I'm glad that you added that, Ron, because once in a while I'll have a firm that's like, well, geez, we're pure architecture, as an example. Why would being a member of ACEC make sense to me? And I tell them, I go to all these meetings because it's all business development. While it's specific to the built environment, I get a ton of stuff out of it. I mean, there's always tips and things that I learn that I can implement, in a different business setting, obviously, because we're an insurance agency, but all very valid information. So that's why I tell firms, it doesn't matter if you're an engineering firm, an architectural firm, whatever, it all applies and it makes sense. And the pack applies across the board for all the different disciplines. So
it does.
Awesome. All right. How about number 3?
Well, I think number 3 is probably, industry promotion. We have an amazing group of companies that have incredible talent within their companies, and they're doing great things for the state of Michigan. Sure. You know what I mean? Improving cities in clean water. I mean, safe travel. These are things that people expect every day.
Sure.
They take for granted, quite frankly.
They do. Absolutely.
Especially the things underground, like water and sewer,
Sure.
and things like that. But
it's just expected it's going to work.
It is. It is. So we have a engineering competition, so to speak, every year where firms submit projects, their best projects for the year. We put together a panel of judges.
Sure.
And we give out awards for the great work that these firms are doing, and we help promote that to the public and throughout the state of Michigan. Because one thing I've learned about engineers is they're extremely humble.
Absolutely.
They don't want to say what they're doing and how great it is and how much
Sure.
how smart they are and knowledgeable. And so I think we can play a big role in helping them do that. So through the Engineering and Surveying Excellence competition and the gala that we have every year. It's just a great way to celebrate all the engineering excellence throughout, the industry. So, and we also award a Firm of the Year. I think it's another way to, really recognize the great things that some of these companies are doing, because a lot of them are truly ingrained in their community.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? They're the engineer of record for the community, and they're coming up with ways to make that city function better and be more enjoyable and improve the quality of life. So, it's a fun event. It's a great way to promote what they do and just share what they do, because it's a big part of the economy.
Sure. So I also attend the ACEC National Conference, and so National Conference is twice a year. I know.
Yep.
One
they have
the
fall,
spring one,
spring and fall. Yep.
Okay. Spring's always in DC. We go up on the hill and that, and then the fall one is typically different locations and this and that. But I'm always surprised at what a great representation Michigan has at that national conference. And I tell you, firms that are listening in on this, if you haven't been to a national conference, I would highly recommend that you at least attend one of them. We tend to go to both of them every year, and it's at a different level. But I think that our representation, as far as Michigan goes, really hats off to the both of you as far as getting the firms to understand why it's important to be there. So that's been fantastic. Awesome. So we're through three of them. How about number four? Number four, as far as the reasons why a design professional should join ACEC.
I would say networking, kind of relationship development, and kind of sharing best practices kind of built in together.
Oh, sure.
One of the things we mentioned with education was the Emerging Leaders Program. And like you said, they get to spend time together, not just kind of in the classroom getting formal education, but outside of the classroom, going to dinner, going out the evening, Thursday evening before the Friday morning session. And those relationships kind of last people for their careers.
Sure.
And the target folks for this training is typically somebody like 10 to 15 years into their career. So it's a lot of peers in the room with each other, and they're really creating relationships that really should last them the rest of their career.
Sure.
And through our conferences, there's just tremendous networking opportunities. And one of the cool things is our membership ranges from, firms with just a couple people to really some of the largest engineering firms in the world.
Sure.
So the ability for maybe a CEO of a small startup company to kind of speak with, leadership from one of the largest companies out there that's been doing it for, some of the companies hundreds of years.
Sure.
Just the sharing of that best practices and that knowledge is really beneficial to our members. And it's a very open community when it comes to sharing that stuff. So really, all the events we have tremendous opportunities for networking that really, get everybody talking about what's working well for them, what maybe isn't working well, and just kind of sharing different ways to do things.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, and I think, obviously there's going to be firms that are, that compete with one another on one hand, but yet what I've always found interesting is everybody really gets along and they want to help each other become better. I mean, there's plenty of work to go around, but I think the best practice is such a fantastic aspect of ACEC as well. Definitely. So,
I love our CEO roundtables. You've got company CEOs and CFOs and folks in that room, and we don't set an agenda.
Sure.
We tell them a little bit about what ACEC is working on, and then we let them tell us what do you need help with. And it's a great opportunity for firms to share information.
Sure.
We've never had one where I didn't walk away with, like you said, learning something about the industry. And I think others, you see them, writing stuff down,
Right.
and learning from one another.
Sure.
And I think that I love those. We're doing some CFO ones now too, because the financial management people, these firms all have similar challenges.
Sure.
And,
Absolutely.
and that's what we've learned from over the years. And whether it's what's the best financial management software, or sometimes it's just a cell phone policy or a travel policy or overtime policy, or how are you doing your renting your vehicles. I mean, the things that come up we didn't necessarily expect. But it's great to hear them share from one another how to become better companies.
Absolutely.
And those are great for that. So
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe if a firm is debating on joining ACEC, they can actually attend that CEO or CFO roundtable.
Yeah.
As a non-member, and I've seen non-member because I come to those meetings also, and I find those extremely valuable, not only to understand what my clients are dealing with, but again, it all comes right back to things we should be thinking about internally at PCIA as well. But so a non-member could attend, and that gives them a flavor for what ACC does.
Honestly, non-members can attend any of our events. Obviously, we have different rates, structures for registration fees for non-members because they're not paying dues.
Sure.
But and hopefully once they attend some of these, they get a flavor for what we're all about, and they want to be, full-time members. And
absolutely,
it goes back to that advocacy thing. I remember, we had an instance where a really bad issue came up, tax on services or something like that.
Oh yeah,
and
sure.
I'm getting calls from firms I've never heard of before saying, "What are you doing about this?" And it's a huge responsibility that we have. And
absolutely,
that's something I, over the years I relish and I also stress over a little bit, because it's like, something bad's coming up, they're going to expect us to take care of it,
sure,
and to work on it and fix it. And
right.
I keep telling members that, the more members we have, the stronger we are as an industry, and the more resources we have to fight some of these things or improve some of these things. So
awesome. Yeah. All right, so we're at number 5. What's our 5th one, guys?
Well, I'll let Mark cover one of these too, but ACC has developed 3 trusts.
Oh, sure.
That are for member firms.
So these are firm member benefits.
They are.
Okay.
A retirement trust where you can enter the retirement plan in a 401k plan, and ACEC will help you with your fiduciary responsibilities to manage this entire plan. It's we're part of it. Our state organizations part of it, and most other state organizations are within ACEC. But huge benefit. Costs are extremely low. Helps reduce, like I said, your liability as a company.
I've heard from firms are like in love with that benefit. Like they love the 401 plan and the benefits that they've, the amount of money they've been able to accumulate as firms and individuals and this and that. So I've heard nothing but great stuff about that one for sure.
Yeah. So, and Mark, I don't know if you want to talk about the other trusts.
Yeah, so there's the Business Insurance Trust,
sure,
and then the Life Health Trust as well. They're all member benefits only for members. The Business Insurance Trust is one that's interesting. Just anecdotally, I had a former colleague of mine who had left to kind of start his own company, so a 2-person shop that was struggling to get insurance. And it was speaking to, brokers that just didn't really understand what he was trying to insure. And he was able to work through the Business Insurance Trust very quickly because it's a trust that's established, run by engineers, for engineers. They knew exactly what he was looking for. It was, not only cost effective, but very efficient for him to get the coverage he needed. So just a very unique benefit for members that is really, tailored toward their business.
I think there's less than 10 brokers in the United States. And the only reason I know this is because we're one of the 10. I think maybe there's like 8 or 9 of us, but in the entire United States that are brokers for the ACC Insurance Trust, and firms love that program. I mean, that it's got some great benefits. One that comes to mind right off the top of my head is, I know on the auto, if a firm has an auto claim, you get reimbursed your deductible. I think the deductible has to be $1,000, and there's like a $10,000 cap in a given year. But a lot of firms have big auto fleets, and that reimbursement on the deductible is sometimes worth its weight in gold just right there. But there's obviously some other benefits to the program, and we've had a lot of great success with that too, definitely. And you mentioned the Life Health Trust also, and I know that one has done very well. The health insurance world is like a whole different ballgame from the rest of the insurances, but I know that program also has done well in the United States. So that's great.
Yeah, and we encourage firms to just get a quote.
Sure.
For some of these things, there's no obligation, but hey, if it can save you $50,000 a year, I mean that more than pays your dues and everything else. So
absolutely.
So those are great benefits. I think that I always say I hope people aren't joining just for the trust.
Sure.
We want them to be active and involved in the association and on committees and other things like that. But it's definitely an ancillary benefit that can save firms a lot of money.
Absolutely. And Ron, you used a word active. And I think that one's so key. It's like anything. The more active you are in ACEC, the more you're going to get out of it. And it's obvious, there's certain firms that I see at every single event. And I mean, you can just tell they're getting out of it, 10 times over what they're putting in, even though they're there every time for all the different meetings and things that, educational and things that are happening. So if you are a member of ACEC and you've maybe fallen off the wagon and not attended some things, you got to get them on the calendar. I know through the website, which is acec.or/michigan.org.
ACCMI.org.
Thank you for clarifying.
No
Thank
worries.
you. Yeah. So ACECMI.org.
Right. Yep.
And the calendar's there is the calendar up for 2024 quite yet?
Yeah, we're already programming a lot of our programs already in there on the calendar. We'll keep releasing new stuff as it comes out, but yeah, we're building that right now. So
awesome. Your offices are in Lansing. Maybe share with us your phone number. I don't have that one memorized.
I don't either, actually.
He's too new.
It's
517-332-2066.
Awesome. Thank you, Ron. That's funny. If anything ever happened to my phone, I would not be able to call my kids. Like I don't even know what their cell phone number is, because everything's programmed. So,
I'd just like to say I'm really happy to have Mark aboard. We're a pretty small staff, and we have been for many years, but thankfully, with the generosity of the firms and more and more people joining the association, we've grown it. Our events have grown, and we can now afford another staff member like Mark, who has been a blessing for me. I mean, takes a lot of pressure off,
Sure.
and able to get him involved and get him started on various aspects for the association. So that's really awesome. Happy to have Mark aboard.
Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. Mark's tearing up. I don't know if anybody.
Yeah, just to kind of add in, it's been great since I've jumped over to ACEC. As a non-engineer who spent my whole career in the engineering world,
Sure.
It felt like a great opportunity to kind of give back to the industry a bit. So just getting to work with Ron and the team we have is awesome. All the 5 reasons we listed off, there's all things we work hard on day in and day out
Sure.
to really help benefit the industry. So it really is a privilege.
Fantastic. Well, Hey guys, thank you for joining me. Anything else come to mind that you want to bring up?
Yeah, I want to thank Cindy and Kathy, our other staff.
You better thank them. Those ladies keep things running.
They really do a lot of the heavy lifting. Cindy's been with me for almost my whole 20 years there.
Sure.
And Kathy was a huge, awesome addition. I think she's been there at least 7 years now, 5 to 7 years. So it's terrific, and they're both always willing to help anybody that needs any help.
Sure,
they can connect you. So
that's awesome.
And I obviously want, I like I said, it's been 20 years now, and I honestly wasn't expecting to be here this long. I really you don't expect that, but it's such a great industry. The people are so professional, and being an engineer myself, I'm not doing engineering, but I'm still getting to see it every day.
Sure.
And being that advocate for an industry that I'm so ingrained in, and it's really been a pleasure to do this, and I really feel fortunate, to have been able to do this for 20 years. And
sure,
I thank my board and all those firm leaders out there who see the value in what we do and are always willing to jump in and help and support the association. It's their association, really, and they've made it what it is today. So
amazing.
It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you, Ron. Yeah. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate you being on Pro Concepts podcast today. And if you wanted to reach out to PCIA, our number is 810-224-5255. That's actually my direct number, 810-224-5255. We have an 800 number, but I can't remember what it is. So thank you. We'll see you next time.